Hey all, let's get started on this Warrior of Minas Tirith. Let's face it, these guys don't really need to come with a complicated paint job. Armours in silver, cloth, boots and gloves in black, some leather and very little skin. So let's take this as an opportunity to improve our skills. Well, technically my skills, but hopefully you'll learn something along the way too. I'll focus on mixing my own colours using a palette I've grown to love, the Zorn Palette. I'll also be building up on my understanding of colour and light. While I set my palette up and spray the model with chainmail, let's cover what the Zorn Palette is. The Zorn Palette is just 4 colours: yellow ochre, red, black and white, named after Swedish painter Anders Zorn. It can still produce a huge range of tones, and since it's such a limited palette, the final results are very harmonious. There's no blue though. Instead, black and white make a cool grey that next to the muted yellow ochre and red reads as blue. This limited palette creates a muted, realistic scheme that suits the Lord of the Rings aesthetic perfectly. However, I have added a blue, making this more of a modified Zorn palette, but it gives me access to richer blues, purples and greens, and should be more versatile for future projects. My final palette is using Chimera colours as they are single pigment paints. The red, yellow ochre, the white, carbon black and phthalo blue green shade. Side note, I've been testing Vallejo colour game metallics, and so far I'm impressed, and for this one I use chainmail and glorious gold. With the silver down, I'm going to start with the cloth. I mix a quick black and add the tiniest touch of blue. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it changes the way the eye reads the colour, making it appear richer, cooler. That black blue goes on the cloth under the armour, and don't miss the areas under the arms. For the leather gloves, I shift the black with a touch of yellow ochre. Skin tones are yellow ochre and red, adjusting the value with white or black until you're happy. This is our base for later highlights. Brown for the leather are yellow ochre, red and a touch of blue. Even a small amount makes a deep, dark brown. This goes on the belts, scabbard and straps on the legs and arms. For the back of the shield I wanted wood, so I mixed the same colours as before and add black to darken. Even when using browns, I like to mix a fresh batch for that subtle variation between browns. The front of the shield gets black with just a touch of red, just enough to warm the hue without making it obviously red. The hair gets a new dark brown mix. For gold details, I use Vallejo's metallic glorious gold on the guard, pommel and the scabbard decoration. Before the washes, I tidy up, only a couple of slips this time, just on the face armour. Now washes boost contrast and create separation between the different areas of a model. Here, Nuln Oil is applied over everything except the face, which gets Reichland flesh shade. I add the original skin mix onto high points like cheeks, upper lip and chin. Then lighten the mix with white, hitting the same areas again but covering less of the mini. For the final face highlight, I add more white plus a touch of yellow ochre to add some vibrancy back into the mix. Now for something I suck at. In fact, I often just leave them. Eyes and teeth. But let's try it. Load enough paint and test the flow on your fingernail or your hand. The paint should come off the brush smoothly but not flood the model. Now steadily, barely touch the model and let the paint transfer from the brush to the model. Leathers get highlights with the base mix plus yellow ochre and white. My mix here was far too thin, but extra layers fix that. The cloth highlights are black and white. Now I should have added a touch of blue here to match in with my base tone, but I forgot. Mid grey first, then a brighter edge highlight. Back to the dreaded eyes, and even smaller, aiming to put the irises in. Slight mistake, but we can clean that up with some skin tone. Not bad, but clearly some practice is needed. We're nearly there. I mix in a very light grey for the shield motif and carefully apply it all over, trying not to hit the black. Ultramatte varnish goes on all the non-metallics, and using the same chainmail as before, I add subtle armour highlights. For the base, I wanted a Pelennor Fields look to add colour to the scene. The base gets an Agrax Earthshade wash and a few grass tufts, then I paint the rim. So now he's done, I think it's worth reflecting on what I learnt. I'm happy with my colour mixing. I can quickly tell what to add to get the shade I want. The palette really does create harmonious colours, everything just fits, without really trying to make it fit. Now for areas of improvement, I need to work on my paint consistency. Sometimes it was a little too thin. I also need to work better on blending layers, or using glazes, and finer brush control for those eyes. Overall, I think we've got a nice looking model, and I've learnt a few lessons along the way, which, if anything, I think is more important for this glorious hobby we all love. Until next time, happy painting.